Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Raphael. In this video, we're going to go over the policy-based management, and we're going to discuss what the policy-based management is, some of its benefits, and some of the terms that we need to know, and then I'll give you a couple of examples of how to actually execute the policy-based management. So what is the policy-based management? The policy-based management is a system that allows the DBA to manage and control on a granular scale how best to apply the rules, regulations, and standards to the entire server or your entire environment that you have for your company. So what does that mean? Well, let's go over here, for example, and that will illustrate that a little easier. Here you'll notice that I have, if you expand the databases and refresh it, I have the current databases here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually create 10 databases, T1 through T10. And while I highlight this and execute it, it'll just take a second to create those databases. And let's just wait another second and it should be done. And there it is. So now if I refresh the databases, you'll see that I have created the 10 databases, T1 through T10. Now, so how does the policy-based management help us in here? Well, I can ask you a simple question. I can ask you, hey, find all the databases with the auto shrink property, which is set to on, then turn them off. Now, obviously, if I asked you to do that, then what you have to do, unless you have a script, which we do, but if you don't have a script, then you have to go to every individual database and you have to go right-click, properties, options, and here you'll see the auto shrink property here, and it's set to true. And we want to set to false. So then you would change it here to false. Now, obviously, you would do that for every single database. Now, even while you have 10 or 15, if I keep doing this, and you look at the auto shrink property, this is false, so that's fine. So you don't do anything to that. And then, as I mentioned, you'll have to go through every single database, try to find the property of auto shrink that is set to on, and then manually turn it off. Now, even with this many databases, about 15 or 20 databases that are here, it's really not that cumbersome. But suppose I have 1,000 databases, well, then it's going to be problematic. So then this is how the policy-based management system allows you to set a standard rule and say, hey, find all those databases. And if you find the auto property that is set on, then turn it off. That's what it allows you to do. It allows you to set standards for the entire system or the entire enterprise. And obviously the great benefits is that it allows the DBA to develop and enforce common enterprise standards for the SQL server. It allows the DBA to actually prevent a certain thing, and I'll be demonstrating that in a second. So you can prevent or enable or disable certain conditions of an object. It allows the DBA to propagate a set of rules and conditions to the whole server or the entire environment and then find out inconsistencies. And then obviously it allows the DBA to automatically do this rather than do it manually because you can set this on a schedule. So these are some of the benefits here of policy-based management. And it'll become clearer as we get into it. A couple of the terms that we're going to be using is the facets and conditions and then the policy. Facets. A facet is a collection of predefined properties of an object that describe the functionalities of a SQL. For example, when I talk about a specific object such as the database, I'm talking about its facets, and its facets such as the properties of auto close and auto shrink. So these would be the properties of this facet called database. A condition. Let me correct that while I'm here. A condition, once you have selected actually the facet, and I'll show you that in a second. So there are dozens, I think there are 75 or 74 facets. Once you've selected a facet, you want to create a policy, you must specify a condition on that. For example, if you want the auto shrink property of the database to set to false, then you must create a condition for this facet. And then I'll show you that in a second. And you'll notice here that when you're creating a policy-based management system, there's only three things you're going to do. You're going to find out the facet you want to apply a condition to. You're going to set the condition, then apply the policy. So it's a very simple thing to do, but it's a very powerful feature to have. So let's go back here now and look at this thing. So that's first, I'm going to give you two demonstrations here. So the first demonstration is going to be find all the databases with auto shrink property set to on and then set them off. As I said, you're going to have to do it manually or you can do it through policy management. So how do you do that? Now that we have the database created, let's look at that. So the first thing you want to do is under management, go to policy management, and you'll see these three folders here. One is called the policy, and if I expand that, there's obviously system policies by default, but nothing user-defined. Then there are conditions, and again, there are system conditions, but not user-defined. And these are obviously what's called facets. And you can see these facets are objects. So the first one I'm going to be selecting, obviously the first decision you want to make is which facet do you want to apply the policy against. In my case, I want the facet database. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is go to conditions, right-click, new condition, and I'm going to call this, let's call this find auto shrink property. I'll paste that there. I may not be able to paste it. There you go. And then the facet, remember the facet that we spoke about that we want is a database. And so we select that. And then here, the next thing is the expression. And what I want is to find the auto shrink property. This is the property of this facet, the database. And what I want to say is find in this database or all databases with the auto shrink equals, and I want to say equals true. True. And then just press tab, and that's it. So obviously if the auto shrink is actually, let me think of that, is it false or true? Auto shrinks equals false. This is what I want, false. And then obviously you can go to the description here and give it a description and say, okay, so now I have set up the condition. The next thing I want to do is go to the policies and right-click new policy. And I'm going to call this policy find auto shrink property for each database. And I'm going to paste that here. And now obviously if you look at the condition I want to check that condition that I just created, find auto shrink property. Now, do I want to do it on every database or a specific database? In my case, if you look at the databases, I want to do it on every single database. So let me go back here and go every database. If I wanted to do it on a specific database, then I would have to actually navigate to a new condition. And then what I would have to do is go database here and then give it a name, a database name, and then specific SQL or something. But since I want the condition to apply to every database, I'm going to leave it here. Obviously here you have the evaluation mode on demand, our string. So we're going to give it a schedule. Make sure you enable this. We can schedule new. Let's just put schedule, and we'll just leave it as is, but you can certainly determine the frequency, the daily frequency and the duration that you want this to run. But for our purposes, it's fine. And then obviously here you can have a description, and I want to give it a description, find auto shrink policy, so we know what's happening. And again, you can do that on your own. So there we go. Now we created it, and that's it. That's all we've done. So if you go back to here, go to management, go to policies and expand that, policy condition, expand that, you'll see these two policies there. Obviously this is set to schedule. So in order to evaluate now, in order to answer that question, hey, of all the databases that we have in the collection of this server, all these databases, not just the ones I created, find the property with set on, or on. So let's see. So all you have to do is go to the policy, right click, and go evaluate. As soon as you evaluate, it'll start running this script, and there it is. And then what you can do, obviously, is now, what you can do is just look at this. If you look at the green little tabs here and go view, you can see that the expected value is false and the actual value is false also. That's what we want. We want the auto shrink to turn off. We don't want them on. So that's fine. So we don't have to do anything with this particular database right here, Snapshot DBS. We don't have to do anything for SQL2, report. These properties for the auto shrink are already turned off, and that's what we want. However, everything here that you see on The on, or the red X here, these three, T1, T6, and T7, these, if you view it, if you'll notice that these actually values are turned on, meaning that the auto shrink property is turned on. So we do want to emphasize that we do want to actually change this. So how do you do it? Just click on this, and it'll automatically select the ones that are not against the policy. Soon as you apply the policy, basically the policy is saying, hey, now that I have found these databases that have the auto shrink properties set on, I'm going to turn them off, and I'm going to go apply. And this policy warning is going to pop up saying, applying the policy modifies all selected targets that do not comply. Do you want to apply the policy? Well, sure we do. That's the whole idea. So if we go there, we're done. So remember, it was T1, T6, and T4 that had the policies on. So let's look at it here now and see if they're actually turned off. So T1, if we go right-click, Properties, Options, Auto Shrink, and you'll see that it's false, which is turned off. And then if you go to T6, I believe it was, go here, Properties, Options, and Auto Shrink, and it automatically did it for us false. So that's a great way of standardizing rules and regulation across the entire database server or multiple servers also. So that's one way of utilizing the policy-based management system. The other thing that you can actually do is you can prevent a system. Now, there's a lot of things you can do, but for our demonstration purposes, I'm going to give you another example of what you can do. So go back to Management Studio, Management, Policy Management, and just uncheck those. Now, the next example I'm going to show you is prevent a user from creating a store procedure that does not comply to the USP_ prefix. And what that basically says is I could prevent users using this policy to say, hey, if you create a store procedure and you do not add the naming convention USP_ prefix to your store procedure, then you will not be allowed to create that procedure. So the facet that I'm interested is the multi-part. Now, how do you determine what facet it is? Well, that's going to be experience. Because as I said, there's about 75 of them, and you're going to have to go through them, and I can't go through all of them. So what we're going to be looking at actually is the facet. We're going to put a condition on the multi-part name. So the first thing you do, just like we did, is we go right-click, New Condition, and we're going to call this Prevent Creation of Sprock. And the facet, remember, is multi-part name. I'm going to go down to expression. The expression is the name. And I want to say like. And then I'm going to use this. So I want to say, hey, give me, let me pop that in there. This is the value, obviously. And press Tab. And there we go. So this is going to prevent a Sprock that does not have a naming convention with USP_. And if it does, if it doesn't, then if it does, it's fine. If it doesn't, you'll get an error message. And let's actually do this here. It's good to get a description here going, because when you'll see the result set on the description, it tells you what to do. So that's a good thing. And now that we've created a condition, the next thing obviously is create a policy. New policy. Let's call this please rewrite the Sprock with USP. And obviously you can say anything you want. I'm just selecting whatever. So now obviously we want to select the condition. Ours is prevent condition. Now obviously you'll see this bar going here because it's selecting everything. What we want to do is select every store procedure for every database. So I don't want to filter this. So anywhere a user tries to write a store procedure without the prefix USP_, we should get an error. So I can go demand our thing. Now obviously here the evaluation mode is I want to prevent this from happening. So you say on change, prevent, and make sure you enable it. And again, on the description, let's put there, so please rewrite this. And that's okay. And that's done also. Now we have a policy executed and a condition. So now let's actually execute the policy. So what I'm going to do here, as you can see, I'm going to create a procedure called policy based. Note that the prefix USP underscore has not been used, and as such, the sprock will not be created. So now that this is activated, if I run this and execute it, I should get an error. Now, obviously, here's the error. So you can see that the error says, and obviously the transaction has been rolled back. Policy, please rewrite the sprock with USB. This has been violated, and so on. And then it gives you a, obviously this is why I like the description, because it kind of tells the user what to do. Please rewrite the sprock with the USB underscore prefix. So now if I write that same sprock with the USP right here, I should be able to execute it without any issues. Actually, there's already one created, so that's fine. But if I go to, I think it's SQL, store procedures, programmability, store procedures. I think I already have one created, but let me delete that so you can see that in action. And there we go. And now, obviously, if I refresh that, there it is. So you can obviously prevent an action from happening also. So that's a great benefit. Now, obviously, we're using a couple of examples here, but as you can see, there's a tremendous amount of power that you can have in creating policies. You can prevent users from doing things. You can set certain standards that must be followed, and so on. So what I would encourage you to do is go to policy management, actually, because now you know how to create these. These are relatively easy. The hardest part, I was thinking, is just kind of getting used to these facets that you have and trying to determine, hey, what do I want to do with these facets? Well, what's the database? What's the database role? So you can obviously secure things. If you want to find about security, about databases, then you can use this facet, file groups that we've talked about, linked servers, and so on. So this is a great benefit to have. And obviously, this is I'm going to give you this script also. Find all the databases with auto shrink on. If you have to verify, just execute this. If you have any that are turned on, then this will show it. And actually, let me go here and manually turn one on, and then we can see the result set. So now I'm manually going to options, auto shrink. I'm going to turn it to true and go OK. So now if I execute this, you'll notice that this script actually finds it. Hey, there it is, prod. Then you can go and alter it. So this is the quick, let me look at the thing. So this is how to use policy-based management system. And these are some of the terms that you should be familiar with. And now you can see the great benefit that you will have in managing a set of standards for your entire server. So once you apply these rules now, for example, you can prevent a person from using auto shrink on any of the databases you've even created them. Remember, the database is a copy of the what database? It's the model database. I believe model database in the system databases. So whatever the standards are here, it'll be followed. And so this is a great way of doing it. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I think I've demonstrated the purpose of using a policy-based management system and how to use it. And I've given you a couple of examples. And I encourage you again to start doing these kind of things on your own and trying to go look at the facets. So I'll see you in the next video. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator. See you in the next video.